Welcome back to the Living for His Glory podcast. We have a very special guest with us today. This is my good friend Eli Cox. I've known this guy ever since he went by Eli Whirling.
That's right. This was all of 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right, man. That's
Yeah.
right. And I know you've had some things going on in your life, and things have switched around for you. But you're learning, you're growing, you're growing, becoming a better man. And when I knew you back a couple years ago in high school, you were already a great man. You still are. But
Hey, a guy. I
a
wasn't
good
a
guy.
man yet. I didn't
Yeah.
know what that was all about, what that really entailed back then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, me and you both are.
We thought we were men.
When reality sets in, we're like, okay, we're a couple of dumb teenagers. But even now, I mean, I'm 20. You'll be 20 in a few months.
Yeah.
We're still got a lot to learn and grow on, but just coming together with this. And we have terrific conversations. We do. Me and Eli, we connected by having good conversations, feeding off each other's energies. And as goofy as we can be, as I'm sure you'll see in this episode, we also have some really intense conversations theologically, mentally, just life.
Yeah.
There's no hesitation to have truth here. There's no hesitation about what's going on in our heads. Nothing's off topic. Nothing's off limits. We're just going to have an open, honest conversation, just like we always do. Just what we do. It's part of why I love you, man.
Love you too, bro. Glad to be on the show, man.
Absolutely,
Glad to be on
man.
the show.
We're glad to have you. We're very fortunate to have this conversation. Even got you your little starter juice here, orange cream ale.
Yeah, but the funny thing about the orange cream ale, and we were talking about this last night, but it dawned on me was when I'm sipping on orange cream ale, there's like the conversations get better, they get deeper, because I didn't really realize this, but for years I've been drinking this stuff. It came out in summer of 2020, I think, and in summer 21, two of my best friends, the three of us became best friends, and we hung out all summer at my grandpa's house. We called it Whirling Manor, and we would buy these, and we didn't think anything of it. We just thought these taste really good because they do, but we just started drinking them out back, sitting by the pool, and we dip our feet in the pool and drink these, and our conversation would go from something really just normal to just the most deep theological conversations, God talk, and also just girl talk. It's funny, we would take a sip of this and then look over and I just go, so girls, right? And now those guys got their girls, and that's good. What are we talking about today?
Well, this podcast, we focus on stories a lot.
Right.
Focus on stories. I got a story. You got a story. Everybody else that's listening to this has a story.
Right.
And what I love to do is I love to bring these stories out because I believe that stories provide the most impact. Lectures, you can get information from lectures and might learn some cool things from those. But I think if you want to provide a real impact on people, a real change in people, you share stories because you learn the most impactful lessons not by from somebody telling you, but from hearing these stories and taking away from those stories. That's why the moral of the story is such a real and impactful thing. A lot of what I've learned just being in school to learn to figure out how to be a pastor, it's like, hey, you don't need to tell them everything you're getting at. Let them start figuring it out. You tell them the story and you start letting them piece together certain things. They form questions, and that's how you engage in a culture of learning.
That's why we go over it in English class. Moral of the story at the end of every book we read.
Yeah, absolutely. As annoying as that can be in an English class setting.
Oh, I hated it.
Yeah,
But it was interesting.
Yeah, I remember we were reading a book, and it was a really deep book. It was a story about the Holocaust, and we had class discussions, and it's one of the only times I've ever gone through a book and had class discussions, a real class discussion, a day dedicated to those. But those are some of the best classes ever. Just talking about it with people, figuring it out, and different perspectives. And that's just how cool stories are, because look at a story, like there's so many ways to break down a story. Like the parables we see with Jesus talking mainly in Mark, there's not one way to view a parable. There's a lot of different ways, and each way has its own twist, and each way has its own way of applying to different people's stories. And it's just a super cool phenomenon that stories are. Yeah, love those. That's what a lot of what we're about on the podcast.
Like
Dude,
that.
just what you got there?
What do I got?
What?
I got a lot. I got a lot of stories. What do we want to hear about today?
Yeah, no, the idea is always centered around living for God's glory, right? That's the name of the podcast itself. That's our goal. That's our initiative. That's it's our mission. Mission driven to spread that and information, yes, but to inspire real change. That's what we're about. That's what I'm about. Inspire real change to live how God wants us to live a gospel-led life as you often do. And of course, me and you wouldn't have a story if we did that all the time. because none of us do it all the time.
Yeah, I got some stories about when I wasn't doing it for sure. I'll start off with I was brought up in a pretty weird situation. My parents never married, and that was fine when the way how they handled it made it fine. Bless them for the way how they handled it, really. You don't expect to have twins. I have a
Yeah.
twin sister, and they were dating. They probably didn't see it coming. They were young and didn't really have any experience in that world or preparation for it. They were just, I don't think either of them thought they were ever going to have kids. Way how they handled it was pretty good. Mom started taking me to church when I was about 6 after they broke up. And I grew through a lot of complicated stuff with my parents, but overall, I didn't handle things well as a kid sometimes when I was angry because I didn't understand. And looking back on it, like I realized that they were doing the best they could. And I'm just happy that I have a good relationship with both of them.
Yeah.
And they have a good relationship with me and my sister. And we're all close and trust each other. And that everyone's doing okay now after all of the, after all of that, after the whole childhood ends. Yeah, I went to Southland Christian Church on Sundays with mom and my sister. And then mom and my sister moved up to Indiana. My mom got a boyfriend in her hometown, and I moved in with my dad. I didn't want to go to Indiana, so I stayed in Lexington down here. And being separated from my sister was complicated. I became even more of a fighter, more angry. But I was close to my dad, and in those formative years of early puberty and stuff, it was very necessary to get close to my dad. Fourth, fifth grade, because I needed a man to be raised with me. Because I've been living with my mom up until then, and I didn't have a man really there every day. I'd see him twice a month, which wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Gotta give credit where credit's due. My grandpa did a good job. My mom's dad, he still does a good job, a great job. But yeah, I needed that like a man in my life. But also things were a little complicated. He drank sometimes. I didn't really like it. And we worked that out eventually, but there was a lot of bumps in the road on the way there. Either with me mishandling it, with him mishandling it, me not knowing when to talk to him and not understanding. But hey, we made through that too. And that was originally my story, was how I worked it out with my parents and my parents worked it out with me and my sister. You get to middle school and high school, and I started going to Southland Students again. I hadn't been to church in a long time since mom moved. And my sister and my mom came back down here because she got married to a guy named Tom. Now, Tom was awesome. He was my stepdad. And at least I think he was awesome. And they moved down here when me and my sister were about to go into sixth grade. I got to go to school with my sister again. And my sister brought me into Southland Students because she had a church up in Indiana that she went to. And she wanted to keep going. And that's where things really began. I started going to students on Wednesday nights and I had all my friends, and things were pretty good. Me and dad kept getting closer and working more stuff out. And I started maturing and started to see things a little bit more. And I could live with whatever parent I wanted. There was no visitation, stupid rights or anything like that anymore. It was just like whatever the kids want to do. Because at this point, we knew what we wanted, and there was no harm in either way. And then high school comes around, and I finally had my solid friend group, and my small group I'd been with for about a year at that point. We kept moving small groups because leaders kept quitting or whatever. That's when the friend group was founded, and I stopped being so close to all my school friends. I had my school friends, Morton and Henry Clay.
I didn't know you went to Morton.
I went to Morton, yeah, yeah. Where'd you go? LCA,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Well, anyway, we all became friends freshman year. I guess it was fall after that. It was a really fun summer, hanging out with my old neighborhood friends from my school. But I wasn't super close to them. Like, I fit in the way that I love sports and I lived in their neighborhood, but I wasn't a rich kid. I lived in an apartment. All of them lived in these 600,000 to $1 million homes in Chevy Chase, while I lived in $1,000 rent apartment in their neighborhood. And I think like I was brought up on different kind of values and a different perspective on life because all their parents were still married. They, or most of them were. A lot of them just had different perspectives. And at the time, I don't think they understood guys like me. That's fine. So I started to latch on to my friends at church because we all were at church. We all followed Jesus. And a lot of the guys I knew, they knew my struggles we talked about every week on Wednesday nights. And we talked about our lives and stuff and what it was like. And we could sharpen each other, right? I guess it was late summer after all this fun we've had. and they had the Southland outdoor event because of COVID and stuff. But it's our first event in a long time since eighth grade. And my buddy Nathan, who I had talked to maybe a few times up until then, he was there, and he's one of the only people I really recognized. And I was like, "Yo, dude, how you been?" I was, "Oh yeah, summer's been weird with all this COVID, blah blah blah." I was like, "Hey, let's hang out today." So we hung out for during the event, roasted some marshmallows, and we played a little bit of softball or kickball. But we had a good time. And then they started having Wednesday night stuff going on, and Cameron came in the picture too around then, and he was another friend of ours, and our small group was really small. We went from about 30 guys to about 5 guys
Wow.
in 1 year because of COVID and people going to high school and changing what they want to do, and
That help
you
or
know
hurt your group?
helped.
It helped.
We went from 30 dudes, whereas there was like probably 6 or 7 of us that really wanted to be there, and then everybody else was there just to hang out with people their age and have fun. And I guess they didn't really get it, and that's okay. But that's natural at that age, and I never really had a problem with it. I was annoyed when we couldn't talk about stuff though.
Yeah.
But I was also part of the problem a lot of the time. As everyone knows, I'm pretty loud. I like to have fun. Of course, you can imagine me, 13, 14 years old, I was even worse.
Yeah, me too.
Oh
Me
yeah.
too.
I was wild. I got students of my own now. They're going their freshman year, and they're nothing compared to what I was or what me and my friends were. They're crazy. They're wild. They have fun. And man, if they hear this, they're gonna think that they can get away with anything. But we were so much worse sometimes. It was crazy. Their lows can be like how our lows are low. I'm just saying. But yeah, anyway, we had fun. But freshman year of high school, and it was just a smaller group. We had some of the guys from the year before, like they'll show up sometimes, but weekly basis, same 6 or so guys. And our leader Charlie was still there, and he was there I guess, all 7 years, sixth grade to 12th grade. But I didn't get to meet him until eighth grade because I wasn't in his group. But Cameron was there, and me and Nathan and Cameron just started to latch on to each other a little bit. Like I was friends with both of them separately, and they knew each other, I think, and I don't know how close they were before, but we all we started a little group chat, just the three of us, and we are just like, hey, let's start hanging out, yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least we started talking on there, and then by the time the winter retreat rolled around, or winter weekend for the high schoolers rolled around the next semester, 'cause back then we had winter weekend. It wasn't fall retreat, it was winter weekend. It was in January and February. They normally did the home group thing where it was like a host home for every small group, stay there overnight, and you go to church the next morning and start all over again. And that would
Mhm.
be a process from Friday night to Sunday morning. They didn't do it that year because of the COVID thing. And my grandpa's house was pretty big, and I had a man cave in the basement that I had put together with him. Shout out to Grandpa for that. Thank you for inventing Whirling Manor and the man cave down there. And I was like, hey, Nathan, Cameron, you guys should stay at my place and let's just do that, and we'll carpool to Southland on Saturday and Sunday. Nathan got to, but Cameron couldn't. So we called him every night, but that was kind of like the first small group sleepover there was just me and Nathan. And that kept going for the rest of that school year. And then that summer, we all hung out all summer, and we started drinking these and having our little pool parties. And then from then on, and it has not stopped, it has never ended. It started with us three, and our small group kept growing and growing, and we all kept going to church every Wednesday and Sunday. But on Saturday night before church on Sunday, we would have a sleepover at my grandpa's house. We would walk down to Kroger, walk down to Walmart, walk down to McDonald's from my grandpa's house, just probably about a mile and a half walk, and then back. And we would just do that basically every Saturday all summer and for most of the school year. And the friend group kept growing and growing, and we all basically became a group of just spirit-led, God-led men, or not men, I guess, but kids, boys
Yeah.
that did our own thing on our own without needing Southland or anything like that, needing a church to do it for us.
Mhm.
We wanted to do that, and we had really good discussion and all those things. We also had a lot of fun. We had a really good time, and especially that first 2 years or so, 2.5 years of that. I'd say until about summer of 2023, which we'll get to. That was the most innocent, good fun I've ever had with my friends.
Yeah.
I call that kind of like the golden days. I like to think that there's better things ahead, and I believe there are,
Oh yeah, there are.
and there always are, especially with heaven. But there's just something
It's
about that.
nostalgic. It's that
Yes.
summer before senior year. I had it myself. Summer
Mhm.
before my senior year, I had a good time. The fall of my senior year, I had a really good time going to war with my bros one last time, competing for a state championship, traveling all over Kentucky. There was a long time where I was like, I considered those my golden days. I believe at this point I'm getting back into others. I'm getting back into more.
As am I.
But yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, because we're just
Yeah.
growing together and figuring things out, and
Right.
you start to leave behind that old nostalgia part of your childhood, which is a great time. Never going to discredit that time, but realizing, hey, we're growing into this new portion, and there's going to be a lot of breakthroughs coming on for both of us. A
Absolutely.
lot of big breakthroughs, man.
They're coming up for sure. Yeah. So that summer of 2023 comes about. Okay, before we get there, we had summer of 2022. That very well could be the best summer of my life. And that's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it never topping that because it'd be crazy if something did.
Yeah,
Even with a family vacation and as amazing as that could be for me someday,
yeah.
man. And I don't have a problem with that.
Mhm.
It's not that I miss it. It's not that I wish I could go back, but I'm just like, okay, objectively speaking, that could have been the best summer ever.
Yeah,
And the thing is that we didn't do anything that most teenagers had to do to have fun.
yeah,
We just had fun,
yeah.
and we were growing with the Lord. And anyway, so that late that summer, early fall, about school year time, it was early August. Nathan brought me to Stud, which is right there,
It's
right down
really,
the street. It used to be.
it was like three houses down. It was amazing how long I was around Stud because I moved here roughly when I think when it started. Roughly.
Yeah, because JP, that was about what, 10 years ago?
10 years ago? Okay, I haven't been here for quite that long, but I remember seeing
It was a
them.
little under 10 years ago.
I remember seeing them like when I was like seventh, eighth grade when I first moved out here, and I didn't understand what was going on. And then went through all my high school years where I could have been in it and I wasn't because I just didn't know. It was amazing how the invisible string theory, like that whole thing. I'm like, man, but I really do believe that God brought me to Stud when I was best suited to.
When you needed
When
it.
I needed it because I did need it. When remember we met,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we met February or March of 23. It was March. Early March of 2023 is my first time at Stud.
Yeah, I'd been there for about 6 months.
Yeah. No, the
Oh,
first time we met was at the Asbury Revival.
we met there? That's right.
That's where
You're
we
with
met.
Nick Gabbard.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know who you were, but
Yeah.
I remember being like, all right, he's pretty cool. And then I saw you at Stud a few
Yeah.
months later.
Yeah. I sat
Yeah.
down to this good looking kid and just made a friend real easy and just had time with God. I
We
can
met
remember.
there.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's where we
goodness.
met. That's where we met. I
Uh,
remember meeting you. I
so that would have
remember.
been January?
Yeah.
Is that January
I think it
23?
was February 23 is when we met.
February
I
23?
remember Grant Goodwin. I just joined Southland with Jacob Wolf. He's going to be on the show in a couple weeks. I joined him at Southland. I met Grant. Grant invited me to Stud, and then Asbury hit, and we didn't meet Stud for 5 weeks because of the Asbury revival.
Yeah.
And then they decided they were going to get together at Asbury, and I was like, all right, this is my chance to come meet these guys because I was wanting community. Because at the time of my life I was going through, I felt very alone, and
Mhm.
now I discover a lot of that was just by my own making. Because I've never had an absence of people in my life.
Yeah.
If I've looked for people, I've had people. Problem was I isolated myself, and I was like, and then I reached a point where I'm like, okay, I want to go meet these guys.
Man ought to not be alone.
Yeah, I want to feel normal again. I want to feel like a human being again. So I went to Stud and met you there, and we just had a good time for those next 6 months before I had to go to college. But it was a really good time in my life, and you guys really helped me. Like, it really brought me into who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, correlated to who I am now and what this podcast is, and just the start of the podcast in general. I had a really good culture there. And the thing is, you had the culture with your friends by the pool, drinking the ale, and it's amazing how that works. It's amazing how such a strong culture, you create that strong culture and what that means and how that impacts your life and how that feeds you. You didn't need Southland anymore. You didn't need it
Right.
because you had those two other guys, you had a bunch of other guys that you were with, you had Stud, and I like the dynamic because when they asked the question, was it better at 30 or 5? You said 5. I'm like, yeah, that's what I expected you to say. because you can get a lot more deep and meaningful when you have five versus 30,
Hmm.
especially when the five that you do have are the committed five. Give me five committed guys over 500 uncommitted guys. Do more with the five committed guys. Just can. You just, it's just,
500 uncommitted guys are just gonna walk away.
yeah, just however many did. And, if you're uncommitted, like that's fine of itself. If you're not committed to doing one thing or another, it's your own choices. And who knows, maybe it's just not for you.
But when someone does see you as worthy of commitment, as a brother, as a friend,
Yeah.
as a mentor, disciple,
Yeah.
as any of those things,
I-
or as an employee, your uncle's cutting me a solid there,
yeah.
thinking I'm worth committing time and energy to and
Yeah.
patience to,
You are.
and he's worth it to me.
Absolutely.
Mike, if you're listening, let's keep doing it. Let's keep building this.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's what it's about. It's about people and connection. That's what so much of it is about. That's what I like to foster. That's what I like. I just love connecting with guys like you and talking with guys like you, building relationships because we share stories, and through building relationships is how it's just so much gets done like that when you have that. And I really love your whole dynamic of two, three guys that are just super close. Inner circle, because that's what Jesus had, an inner circle. So he had his 12 disciples, but then he also in the 12 had the three inner circle guys. James, John, and Peter. Those are the three that went on the mountain with Jesus and saw
Right, right,
Moses and
yeah.
Elijah, and right, like those are the dudes. Those are the guys that were closest with him. And then even the 12. So that's an important, I think, frame for having friends. I got my three. I got my three inner circle. I got those three dudes I just talk to and I open up to, and I like that. And of course, I've got other friends I'm close with as well, and then everybody else is more obviously friendly, obviously love them, more I guess more an acquaintance kind of deal, temporary. They provide more of the cameo, and
Right, yeah.
nothing bad about them. It's just
Yeah.
how that kind of is.
That they're appropriate in that spot, and things change sometimes, but
Yeah, you can move in and
up
out.
or down, yeah,
Happens.
yeah.
Dude, a couple things I just catching on here, and I think that we can really connect with some people because you can connect to people in a different way than I can. Me and my dad talked about this a couple months ago. I don't really have a I have a story, but I don't have a deep. I've got stuff that I've encountered, I've been through, but I haven't had the hard hitting stuff. I don't know what it's like to have unmarried parents. I don't know what it's like to have two different homes. I don't know what it's like to live in a small apartment growing up. I don't
You don't
understand.
even know what it's like to go to public school
I don't know what it's like to go to public school. He's got a point.
or buy a rust bugger for $500.
Yeah,
Drive that thing around.
yeah, I don't know
You
what
got
that's
different
like.
experiences.
No, yeah, but there's people I can connect with better than you can. But I think there's a lot more people you can connect with than I can, at least story to story, just because you went through stuff like that. Most kids could never dream of having the childhood that I had, the life that I've had.
It was a dream of mine when I was a kid, man.
Yeah,
It would have been pretty cool.
well, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
charm life. It is. I'm very fortunate to have it, right?
Hey, yeah, be thankful. It's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Don't be sorry about it.
yeah, no, I'm not sorry. I'm very
Yeah,
grateful.
don't be sorry about
No,
it.
I wouldn't wish that upon myself. I wouldn't wish that it was all taken away. But this thing with your dad
Mm.
and growing with him, growing up with him, you guys, it's almost sound like you grew up together.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there have been things that I worked it out with my dad with, but my dad's also a great dude, been my hero for my whole life. But like, what was the way that you approached this? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that would love a connection with their dad. I know that you've gained a terrific connection with your dad, especially after you graduated high school and become an adult. And obviously, it grew when you were a kid with him. And just those approaches of connecting with your dad, growing with him.
Mm.
Like, what's ways that people can do that and connect to their own fathers? And
My situation is a little unique because as I've grown, I've realized how wrong I was for some of the ways how I thought.
you took responsibility first. There's a level of when you're finding that connection.
Yeah, when I was younger, dad drinks, right? But man, he used to drink more than he does now. But I think the way how I went about that, I think it was unnecessary in a lot of ways. I got really worked up over something that wasn't worth getting worked up over. Instead of, I don't know, just handling it, just being like, hey, all right, cool, I'm just gonna treat you like a normal person. I'd get mad at him. And that's not exactly a good idea, but something that I always struggled with when I was younger was the right and wrong and drunkenness and things like that. Me and him wouldn't get along when he was drinking. But I started calling him out, just being like, hey, I think it's a little bit too much. But I think things came to a boiling point with my temper and his. We got in one last fight. We didn't really fight a ton, but we'd argue. But we got in one last kind of scuffle, and I was like, all right, look, I'm going. I'm going to mom's house. And we talked it out a little bit later, about a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks later, I surprised him at work and we talked it out. I was like, hey, look, I think it's just too much, and I don't think that it's good for our relationship. And I
Mhm.
was probably about 14, 13, 14 years old. Not saying that it's okay to have this conversation at this age and being in that situation, but it's what I knew. So I was cool with it. And he was really sorry. And I think that after that, things really changed. And I also learned how to loosen up a little bit and just be like, hey, man's gonna do what he's gonna do. Don't piss him off while he's drinking. Don't do it. Don't
Mhm.
egg him on. Don't go up and be like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. Because he ain't gonna stop if he's there. He ain't gonna just be like, oh yeah, you're right, but we can talk the next day.
Yeah.
And we did. And yeah, he still drinks sometimes, but he can go a whole week without doing it at all now. And he's married now, and I think that his the dynamic between me and him got a lot stronger after having that conversation, and then we started just being close.
Yeah.
And I think the older I got, the more I understood how that stuff works,
Mhm.
and I got more of a grasp of right and wrong and what's appropriate as well as I got older. But things that aside from that, like me and dad, he was going through a heartbreak. He was going through losing my mom. They broke up. And he's got to take care of me, but his daughter lives 4.5, 5 hours away. I can't imagine what he's going through in that moment, right? We didn't have a ton of money. We shared a bunk bed in a studio apartment for years. And so that dynamic was very different when I was in my early teens and like in middle school, basically. And like I couldn't imagine it. I guess actually from fourth grade till summer before my freshman year. And I think that those memories are really important because while things were streaky because he was struggling and he was having a hard time, he was working a lot. But the times that we did have where he taught me a lot about being a man and showed me a lot of cool movies and
Yeah.
TV shows and music and stuff, I think that it helped him be able to calm down and heal. And I think that it gave us a chance to really be close for the first time because I wasn't super close to them before because I only saw him every other Sunday for years. But I was an angry kid who I blamed my mom for their breakup when I was little, and that's probably one of the reasons why I moved in with dad was because I was mad at her, but also because I didn't want to leave my friends from school. But I think that's another thing is that I was upset with her, and so I thought that anything would be better, and I realized that just like how most adults are, I guess all adults are, all situations, both people were wrong. No one was right. It was a nasty thing. It's a breakup. They weren't good for each other ultimately.
Yeah.
But yeah, things got considerably better between me and my mom when I was in high school because I was still just, we were nasty to each other, but I was especially nasty to her. I let a lot of things that her mom would say ring true in my head. Her mom's a head case. She just says things and she has a lot of hate in her heart. And she said a lot about my mom that wasn't necessarily true and would pin us against each other. And so that kind of fueled my very, what's a good word for it? Impressionable anger I already had. I was already pretty vulnerable. And that just made it worse.
Glad you used the word vulnerable there. Because I think vulnerability is seen as a negative thing in today's society. Let me ask you a question, Eli. If I never got vulnerable with you at that time of my life when I met you about my story, about what was going on in my life, do you think me and you would be here today and as close as we are?
We wouldn't be close at all. I don't know if you'd even be here today. And I don't know if I would be either because I wouldn't have talked to you about a lot of stuff I had going on that
Right.
we'll get to.
We wouldn't have this connect enough of a
Right.
connection to be A, really good friends, and B, being good enough friends and have enough good conversations to have a whole podcast together. The whole point is to get deep. The whole point is to be vulnerability, man. It's like, yes, there is a level of you can get hurt here, but if I don't know you, if you don't trust me to be vulnerable, if you're not vulnerable with me, you don't trust me enough to do that. I can't have a good relationship with you. I can't have a good connection with you. And worse, you're not able to grow. The thing about vulnerability, it's almost confrontation, not between me and you, but between you and you. The most impactful things that I've had, the most impactful lessons that I've learned came from me being in a state of vulnerability. A vulnerability of, hey, I've got to fight this. I've got to confront this. I've got to deal with this. And now by doing that, I got a lot stronger. We like to protect ourselves as human beings. We don't like to be hurt. We don't like to allow somebody else to hurt us.
Right.
And I agree that most people, you shouldn't allow most people to hurt you. I have a coach that his phrase is, "You're not man enough to hurt me. You're not meaningful enough in my life to hurt me." But that's just a part of life. Is the closer people are to you, the more they can hurt you. People like my dad, people like my girlfriend, they can hurt me more than most people ever could dream of. They can hurt me more than you can. Like just
Absolutely.
being honest with it.
Yeah, I can hurt you, but not that bad.
Oh no. Oh no. My dad and my girlfriend can make me stop.
Yeah.
Like legit. Because, when it comes from somebody as close as them, that hurts. That hurts a lot. The thing is, if we go around life thinking I can't be vulnerable because I don't want to get hurt, we're not living life, are we?
No, no.
You can't
Well,
know.
that's more cowardly than anything.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Not being willing to go through the pain, man, you're running. You're hiding. That is cowardly.
The hard conversations are very important.
Yeah.
They're some of the most important things.
Yes. The most successful people that I know have no problem wanting to have hard conversations. Actually, they are wanting to have them. They crave the hard conversations because they know. Like they get it. That's how you grow. That's how you get better.
I crave them hard conversations, man.
Yeah, man. That's why we're here.
Exactly.
We're not here to just goof off.
I didn't have to be here. We called last night, and you're like, I got some guys that canceled on my podcast.
I did, yeah.
I was like, I could really use one of them talks. I think that your folks would love me on there. And you were like, yeah, all right. I just don't want, are you okay to do that? Because there's been stuff going on lately. And I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. Just making sure, I'm looking out for you.
I appreciate that, dude. But yeah, that part of my story pales in comparison to the last 2 years.
I agree.
So that's the first 15 years.
I would love, because
there's some other stuff, but that's in a shell the first 15 years of my life. I
would love to talk more about your friends.
My friends?
Yeah.
They're what got me through it.
Exactly. That's what because people are going through stuff like this. People are going through stuff the first 15 years of your life. Troubles with dad, troubles with mom. Dad is an alcoholic. All of my grandfathers have been alcoholics. I come from that too. Not direct, but my dad stopped it. My uncle stopped it. It's not something that I've directly seen in my household, but it's part of my bloodline. We've had alcohol. We've had everything that I've had my entire childhood growing up. It's because of my dad and my uncle. They were the ones in my family that changed everything. Everything before my dad and my uncle, man.
You talking about Mike?
Yeah. And Mike.
Another W for Mike.
Yeah. It was broken before, so broken before that. Incredibly broken before that. And they changed it. They completely just changed the family dynamic, the family landscape. And I'm trying to build off where they're going to leave off, where they're continuing to build. I'm trying to build off that too. Because our family never needs to go back in those days.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yeah, like I've caught a little bit of the story. Not much, but a little bit of the story.
You'll learn more.
I'm sure.
You'll learn more.
For context, I work with his family.
Yeah.
I work for them, really. So, yeah, I know pretty much all the Barretts now. So, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I think I do know all the Barretts.
Barrett men, I think.
All the Barrett men.
All the Barrett men, yeah. But, so of course, feeding in with that childhood aspect of it, but also recently growing, learning, becoming a man. You're living by yourself now.
Yep.
You're getting a lot more independent. That's caused some struggles. You did 1 year of college. That ain't it for you.
I think I'm just going to take some classes, like some business classes online.
Yeah.
Finally, my heart was so hardened, like Pharaoh almost, about instead of like letting them go, it's about college.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't like this. And I was like, man, I'm never going back to school. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take some business classes. I think I'm okay. But it took me a good 2 months for me to be like, okay, fine. Literally, I had that idea like 2 days ago. And I was like, I think it was in the middle of just, man, I'm like, man, I'm working my tail off here. I need to make sure I have an education or something.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah.
But it's just people going through the same stuff. I love having people on here with stories and with that's had bad things because there's people listening that are going through the same stuff or similar stuff or right.
Right.
You're most, and you heard me say this yesterday. This is from Ed Milet. You are most qualified to help the person that you used to be. So, how many different people can I talk to that can further reach more people that I've never been, but they have been, and that we can now foster connection and we can now help them get through where they are because we were right
Right. And
there.
that's how we became friends.
Yeah, me and
Because
you
we had
had,
been in similar spots, even as completely different, like in completely different lives. We've been in similar spots and we're very similar people.
yeah,
And
it's
so,
amazing how
you
life
know,
works like that, right?
yeah, a kid that grew up with the parents split, studio apartment,
Yeah.
and a house with a stepdad. We had a hot tub. That was pretty cool. That felt like private school,
Yeah.
And then we got parents are married, private school, not a drop of alcohol in sight. Completely different childhoods, but
Yeah.
hey, we grew up to be very similar types of men, and we've been through some very similar things. Just on, I guess, just on our own as high schoolers.
Life hits you no matter who you are. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, life has a way of hitting you. And you can compare apples to oranges. Oh, he had a little harder than I did. I didn't have to deal with this. But it's easy to become a victim doing that. Oh, my life
Right.
wasn't that hard.
Everyone's got a choice. Yeah,
That's what I mean by everyone's got a story. Everyone's got pain, man. I've got pain. You got pain. You guys got pain. It's our job to help heal each other, to help each other, not to
right.
think less because maybe we didn't have it quite as hard objectively.
Yeah, society ruins that. That's a Satan trick, at least in my opinion. It's just they make people think about the wrong details, right? They think
Yeah.
about how much money, what clothes do you wear, what car do you drive, how big's your house, and what's your family look like, or how well put together is it, and then
Satan will do anything to take your story away from you.
yeah, and to draw your attention to something stupid,
Yeah.
something trivial. But yeah, let's talk about my friends then, right?
Please, yeah. We like they
Yeah.
got you through such hard times, and that's something that I deeply crave because they did it for you, and my friends did it for me. Friends are important. Connections are
You've done it for me
important.
too, man.
Yeah, man.
You've
Me
been
and you were
here.
good friends, right?
Right. Yeah, we
We
did it
each
for each
other.
other,
We
right?
did.
Right.
So what?
I mean,
What's
we
the
ran around the same crowd for a couple of years. I sure hope so, right? Yeah. Okay. First of all,
Yeah.
there's Lucas, obvious. I talk about Nathan and Cameron, and
Yeah.
we have Phil and
Oh.
Nathan Elliott,
Oh.
Eli Anderson.
Oh,
You've got-
not long hair.
Yeah.
Long hair Anderson.
Yeah. Goldilocks.
He still needs a haircut. He still needs a
Hey
haircut.
man, but I never needed one. You thought mine was beautiful.
Okay, yours looks good.
Hey, his is nice. His is nice. He's got that. What do you even call it, man?
I didn't
Got
see,
that.
yeah.
He's got that rock and roll.
I didn't see him for a year, and he went from a haircut almost similar to mine, at least lengthwise, to what he is now. And I'm like, you didn't get a haircut in the full year that I didn't see you. It was just more of a shot than anything, but I'll get on him about it. That's the way I am. Right?
Hey
I'll
man,
make
yeah,
fun of
that's what
people.
you got to do. That's what you got to do. But we got those guys. We've got Amari, who's awesome. I went to middle school and high school with him, and
Yup.
started taking him to church. We rode from track practice to church every Wednesday, and he'd come over to my house after track practice back in the day, and when I still ran track. And because his mom didn't have a car, he didn't have a car. He's ride his bike everywhere. I was like, tell you what, we'll just start riding with me. He's about to go run track over at a school in West Virginia. I'm pretty sure he's working on that. Let's see. We've got Logan and Anais
Yup.
and some of the younger guys, Connor and Jacob. But we've got those guys, and we got Sammy King now. He showed up. I don't even know if you know who that is, but he's friends with Eli, but he's come to a couple of hangouts. David Fields,
Oh yeah, David.
absolute dog, dude.
Yeah.
Absolute legend.
Surrounded by a lot of good dudes. It's been a privilege to me when I've gone over to Whirling Manor and I've met him. It's been a privilege.
See, we all knew each other at Stud, but then I just host stuff over there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I consider it the greatest blessing of my life. And I think it'll be that way until I'm married, and it'll be that way until I have kids. But
For now.
the greatest blessing of my life is the fact that God put about 20 to 30 good men in a circle. So you can't find 1 in 50 good men in today's world, especially in this country. You can't. You just don't.
Hard to find.
You don't find good men. And I like to think that most people are well-intentioned, good people.
And just
But then when I go outside,
yeah,
but
just a lot of people here where I've come in and been formed last year and a half is I've met a lot of dudes and I've gotten deep with a lot of dudes. When I went through something called Rise Up Kings, the Crucible, I went through with 50 something guys. And when I went back last month to volunteer, there's about 43 of those guys in there, and just with those guys and everything, and everybody that I've met since, and everybody's got a story. Everyone's got traumas. Everyone's got issues. And what that happens is that creates cycles of dysfunction in our lives that show up everywhere. I see guys that just don't have their heads quite on straight, that act in certain ways, and alcoholism is one of those cycles of dysfunction. It's not the alcohol itself, but what makes you do that, what makes you get into that, the stuff that
Right.
goes on in your head, the dysfunction, trauma goes on in your head, and it draws you into that.
Am I having a good time or am I trying to get over something?
Yeah, and
You know,
generally,
that's something that I ask myself before if I'm going to be having something, even with my dad or something,
yeah,
I'm thinking about how am I doing?
yeah,
Like I ask myself, how am I doing? Because if I'm not doing good, if I'm sad about a girl or sad about something or angry or stressed about something, I'm like, all right,
yeah.
okay, then you think that this is a medication and you shouldn't be doing it.
I'm a kind of guy that thinks if I can have fun without alcohol,
And I see exactly. I
I've
can have
done
fun without it anyway.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've done it my entire life. You can have fun without alcohol. It's just so easy to get into a place of I just need this to get my to feel something, to get my head off something. That's where you get into so much issues, man.
It's
That's
a
where you start getting
cycle.
into so much crap. And so now you go around and you negatively affect other people's lives because your own life is negatively affected because you've got your own baggage that you're carrying. And now just by being around people, it's rubbing off on them. It's
Right.
hurting them. And that's where I'm like, people, I think people are good people. Like you said, well-meaning people. They just got so much baggage that they never dealt with. It's
Right.
causing them to act out in these ways. It caused me to
Right.
act out in ways. It caused me to lose people. It
Yeah.
caused
Same
pain for
here.
me.
Same here.
It caused pain for other people, man. So now
Yeah.
I'm continuing to break through of mine, make sure I'm on top of those. But now it's like how I want to help other people break free from their own. That's what
Right.
the podcast is for. I'm starting something soon, a membership that we can really get deep into this kind of stuff with. I want to help. I want to impact.
Get in there.
Yeah,
Right.
even though I haven't gone through the cycles of dysfunction that most people have, I've gone through my own, and I think that it may not be the exact same, but the fact that I've gone through my own cycles of dysfunction, it connects me with everybody because we all have our cycles of
Right.
dysfunction.
You know somebody that's been through each one. You know
Exactly.
somebody, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why I'm here, right? But anyway, it's hard to find that many good men in that age group, especially in God, let alone in just one town. God put all of us together. You
Yeah.
know?
God works in Lexington, man.
Yeah,
In
he
Nicholasville.
does.
Like God
Yeah,
does work
he
there.
does. He's all over here, man. And Central Kentucky loves God, and God loves Central Kentucky. Anyway, that group is a big part. Thank God for this. A big part of why I made it through what I went through next. Because I was reading the story of Elijah, right? And in one chapter, he's on the mountaintop. He just proved to everybody who's boss, right?
Yeah.
God revealed himself and basically just destroyed everybody else's sacrifice. Just like, look, I'm boss, right?
Yeah.
The next day, he's running for his life and everything's falling apart because he's terrified, because he's scared and he doesn't know how he's supposed to keep going and he's exhausted. I was on the mountaintop by May 2023, man. I've been going to stud for a couple semesters and I had the girl of my dreams at the time and I was doing good. I had a lot of friends and I was doing all right as a person. I was growing up to be in, it felt like I was smooth sailing and I really was at the time until, man, I'm going to like adulthood. I'm going to like it. Man, senior year's going to be cool. Well, mom and Tom have been fighting, and I don't want to go into the details of all that. I don't. But mom and Tom, my stepdad, have been fighting. And it was starting to stress me out a little bit. And by May 2023, never forget it was a Tuesday. For some reason, I didn't have work, even though it was a Tuesday. But I get back to the house. I just drove back with Tom's Dodge Charger he was letting me borrow in high school. I just gotten my license a few months prior. And I get back, and they're fighting. And I said, I'm gonna get out of here. I just left and I went to the gym and I did curls until I couldn't feel my arms no more. It was one of the worst fights I'd heard out of them. And they've fought before, but like this, I'm just like, whoa, what in the world? I get done at the gym and I call my mom to ask if the coast is clear. And she tells me that they're getting a divorce. And this shook me. I didn't know what we were going to do. Mom hadn't worked in years, and dad had a two-bedroom apartment at this point. I knew like I'd have somewhere to go, but this shook my world. I was like, so we're losing the house. I'm losing Tom. I'm losing my dog because that's Tom's dog. There goes a lot of stuff that made life easier and more fun. And Tom was awesome. I was really close with him. He was someone that listened when I was angry about stuff.
Yeah.
And I really don't know how close to Jesus he really was or how much he really cared, but he always made sure I was going to church. He always made sure. Even when he knew that it was something that I was doing under my own willpower at this point and something I wanted to do, he was still making sure I was going. He was concerned if I wasn't.
Yeah.
So he at least held me to a standard.
Good.
When he took care of my mom, he took care of me and my sister. He provided for us because mom wasn't working no more. The things that she wanted to do weren't working out. She was trying to start these businesses, but these people were sketchy and they weren't helping, and these people were mysteriously getting in trouble, and then she's just whoa. So she stayed out of everything for a while. But her story is a crazy thing on its own. And so I was just like I was just shaking. Everything went from the mountaintop to just
Whole life blew up in
like
an
I
hour.
was like, God, what do I do?
Yeah.
An hour. It was an hour.
It's an hour and my
Yeah.
life just got blown to smithereens.
Yeah. So I didn't cry. I wanted to. But when you're at that age, it's harder to because I already did when some folks in my family had passed away not long before this. And so things are starting to kind of like chip again. But I wasn't like convinced that anything bad was going to happen. I was just like, look, they're older. Like I saw it coming. My grandma passed. She was almost 90, I'm pretty sure. And she was the matriarch of our family. And it's sad because my dad's side of the family still hasn't had a whole lot of function since then. We hang out a lot less, but it sucked. But at the same time, like she had been ready for so long. Her husband had died decades ago. And she was ready to go. But then when she was living with my mama, her daughter, then Mike, her husband, like Mama's husband, he passed in January or February. It wasn't too long after revival. In fact, it was right before I started dating my high school sweetheart. So yeah, it's like the same few weeks there.
Wow.
Crazy few weeks.
Wow.
Revival, Mike's passing, high school sweetheart started. So crazy few weeks. Very roller coaster. But I was still doing all right. I was angry at God for that. And I was like, please, just nobody else have an issue. And then the divorce. And so I'm just like, come on. Like, I've had some losses recently. I was pissed, dude. So oh no, it was a Wednesday. Yeah, because I went to a Southland summer kickoff and it was an outdoor event and I didn't take my sunglasses off the whole time. I didn't want anyone to see my face. I saw my friends, I told them what happened and I just couldn't believe it. I was so out of it and I just wanted to have fun, but I couldn't. Ended up hanging out with my girlfriend that night. She tried her best to cheer me up, bless her. And but that was the start of all this. And then that summer, I tried to make the most of it, but I was like, man, I know that mom has nowhere to go. And at the time, I don't know what her deal was, but she was not getting along with my grandpa, her father. She thought that he was in cahoots with all of the people that were screwing her over in this business thing and that he was part of it, which wasn't true. I wonder what was going on with my mom's head at the time, and I've talked to her a few times about it since, but she wouldn't accept his help. And he was going to get her a house. He's in real estate. He could do that. He move things around. And so she had nowhere to go. And so I went out of town. I went to the lake with my buddy Ethan and his family. Just a tradition of mine for years, tradition of ours for years with the Thomas family. It was me and them. And I come back and there's a big storm. And it knocked out power on my side of town where my mom lived, but not where my dad lived. And I decided in the pouring rain after we just got done watching a movie when we got back to town, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start packing. I bought the Dodge Charger off of Tom for $500.
That's nice.
He just shook my hand and said, "All right, it's yours." He gave me the title. He already wrote his part of it. I took that Charger and I filled it up with all my stuff. And I got out of there. And while this was all happening, My girlfriend at the time went on a mission trip to Uganda, which was cool. And then she went straight from there to GSP. And that's a 2 month gig. So she was gone for 2.5 months. She was gone the whole summer. So the person that I relied most on to talk to and really comfort me wasn't really around.
So who was there for you?
I guess it was just my friends, really. It was my friends, and I tried my best to have a relationship with God, but it was dwindling. My faith was really, it was tested, and I was failing the test. Let's put it that way. So I moved in with Dad that day, or that evening, because he was out of town or something, or maybe he was staying with his wife, because they weren't in the same house yet, but they were married, because he wanted to be able to have room for his kids and stuff, and he wasn't quite ready to jump ship to that chapter of his life, but he wanted to be married to her. So me and my sister moved in that night. I brought her with me. She brought her basic needs. I brought mine, and I brought most of my clothes and bedding. And actually, I had bedding, but I brought like my clothes and I think some video games or something, just something to have. And I was like, all right, I'll come back tomorrow and pick up more stuff before work. That's where it all started. That's where the gut punches really started kicking in. Me and my sister didn't particularly do great together there. Like we'd have good times, we'd hang out, and then other times we'd just be fighting because this was just close quarters combat basically. We were just stuck in a tight space for the first time since we were little kids, and Dad was there, and we were all frustrated. We were frustrated that Mom wouldn't just talk to Grandpa. In fact, all she did was just cuss him out anytime he tried to reach out. And I just started questioning her mental health entirely at the time. I was like, what in the world is this woman's deal? And that's where we were for a while. And then by late July, I was pretty worn out and I got in a car accident with my best friend. So I rear-ended Nathan on the way to church on Tuesday morning for Bible study because there was a guy on the wrong side of the road on Clays Mill Road. And Nathan's car stops on a dime. It's a little Honda Civic. As I've covered, I drive a boat, and this thing didn't stop. So it skidded. I tried to swing it just a little bit. Right front slams into his left rear. And so insurance covers his car, doesn't cover mine. But I wasn't at fault. The insurance took it out on the guy who was on the wrong side of the road and ran. We took a picture of his plate, and insurance was also on the food truck that was in the way of the guy who was moving. Whatever. But that I was just like, are you kidding me? After all of this, right? And then my girlfriend's gone. Mom's gonna be homeless soon if she don't get her act together. And I I'm dealing with all this, and then I get in a car accident and I have to fix my car. So thankfully, the only thing wrong with my car was my headlight. I had to replace a fender, I had to fix up the bumper, I had to get new headlights, and I had to do a few other minor things, very cosmetic stuff. Nothing serious happened to the car, thank God. Thank God I didn't bust a radiator, which ended up happening later anyway. Not in a car accident, just it was just old.
Cars, right?
Cars, man, it's a profession now.
There you go.
That's right. But all that happened, and oh man, I was just exhausted by then. And anyways, my girlfriend at the time, she comes back from GSP after this car accident. And right when I'm trying to work on this car, she gets her wisdom teeth taken out. And then me and her started not getting along because I visited her like pretty much every day that she was like bedridden and all that. But she was like, you're not visiting me enough while I am working 40 hours a week and I'm fixing my car every morning, like working on my car with Phil every morning. And I visited her on the way from Phil's house to work. And she's like, you're not visiting me enough. And we started fighting about that. I got to cut her a break here. She did not want to go to GSP. Her mom wanted her to go.
Yeah.
And she was miserable there.
Yeah.
And when she got back, she was pretty miserable still. She wasn't the same. So it was pretty apparent she wasn't the same. And a little bit into senior year, first semester, we broke up for 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. And we got back together after she calmed down, I calmed down. And while my life wasn't exactly great, I knew I needed her. And so we got back together for a couple weeks and let it be known, it's not always a bad idea to get back together. Sometimes you just need some time. Sometimes. Most of the time not, though.
Not in my situation, agree?
Not in yours.
Not in my situation.
You stay away. You just stick with your lady and you'll be fine.
Yep.
You'll be fine.
Yep. 10 months in now, we'll be going on 10 decades later.
Congratulations on that, by the way. Proud of you,
Yeah.
buddy.
Yeah.
But
Oh, man.
anyway, so all that's going on, and by now, the house has been sold. Tom went back home to Indiana. Mom never apologized to Grandpa or even warmed up to him. Still thought he was an evil person. And so she started living in her car my senior year of high school. And me and Liv still live with Dad in a tight environment. It was nothing I wasn't unfamiliar with, but definitely something that Liv was a bit less familiar with, I'd say. And yeah, and my morals started to kind of change. I started to be like, what does God care? I was compromising. I wanted to just feel better. I just started cussing more and just not being as nice to people. And I stopped going out of my way to serve others. And I started to get angry and I started to get selfish and I started to really worry about money because I was like, man, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to live like this. And so I started being like, man, I need to make as much money as possible. And so I quit track and I did co-op. And if I wasn't at work, I was at the gym. But I spent a lot of time alone. A lot of time alone. The person that I saw the most was my girlfriend at the time. She helped me as much as she could, but I don't think she understood. I don't think that there were some things that's part of why we probably part of why we didn't work out was I don't think she could grasp what it was like to be me or even have that empathy. To no fault of her own, we just grew up in such different situations. Her hurt was different than mine. And I think I wasn't capable of handling myself in a relationship at the time. And I don't think that she was ready to handle something like me anymore. Because I was pretty well put together when we found each other. I wasn't that way anymore. I gave up on myself, or not really. I hadn't given up yet, but I was starting to.
Yeah.
That comes later. Senior year, I'm just going through the motions that entire year. When I had to quit track for more money, like when I had to work more because I had to, there was just a need for it. Because I started having to like, if I wanted something to eat, like I probably had to pay for it, unless it was the basic needs. Yeah, make sure we're fed. But man, if I wanted to eat more, I gotta go and buy it myself. We're at this point now. Things were just getting rough, and I wasn't really talking to my friends anymore. That whole summer, I just would hang out with them, but we didn't do anything great. And we didn't have these Orange Cream Late conversations anymore. We just, first of all, our hangouts became a lot less of God. We weren't drinking, we weren't smoking. I might have been smoking, but not there. But what we did do was like we played games that involved like hazing basically. Like we played silent football and the punishments went from oh how he lost he has to I don't know get thrown in the pool till it's just hazing, right?
Yeah. Some of those punishments were a little wild.
Yeah. Well, so that's where we were at. Just wasn't as close to my guys anymore. And it was my fault. I isolated myself. I didn't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I barely even talked to my girlfriend. I hang out with her, but I wouldn't really talk to her about how I feel. I just wanted to feel better. And that's how things continued for the rest of senior year. Graduation, and then we had a nice break around like New Year's and prom. And then after prom, things got rough again. I was excited about my future because I decided I wanted to do aviation in college. So that would pay the bills. And she didn't like that. My ex didn't like that. And now I understand. But that back then I was just, who are you to think that I shouldn't do this? And it's going to make us a lot of money and all this stuff. And I was stubborn about it. She was stubborn about it. And then eventually she conceded after a lot of arguing. She was like, fine, do your thing, which is fair. At the end of the day, she was right to do that. I still thought that was what I should have been doing, which wasn't true.
That's part of life.
Yeah, you make mistakes, you try things, right? Well, school year ends and graduated high school and me and her weren't doing so great. And yeah, I know it's a lot about her, but that's the spot where we're at now. This is look, we're at the tipping point, okay?
Yeah.
So she wanted to go to school out of state again. She decided that she didn't want to go to in state anymore because she originally wanted to go out of state when she was younger. Decided to go. Then she was like, maybe I should go in state because I like this. I really love this guy. And she was like, oh, I'm going out of state. Just out of nowhere, just like I'm doing it.
Hmm.
She got accepted in a school about 3 hours away that doesn't let you have your car your freshman year.
That's not really.
Yeah,
They don't up
they
there.
don't up there.
Wow.
And so that starts to create some concern for her. She starts to worry about our relationship, even though it was her own decision. But anyway, she started worrying about our relationship. And I was like, look, I'm worried too. But I was like, look, we can figure this out, right? I could not convince her that we were going to figure it out. She would worry and worry, treating me different. Stop saying I love you. Stop. Well, she'd say it if I said it, but stop checking in so much. Created distance because she didn't want to hurt whenever she was gone. She wanted to get used to the idea of me not being around. She's avoidant like that. A lot of women are. And I'd been there before with her whenever the first time, right?
Yeah.
And so after talking to her for the 14th time about it, I was like, look, I'm just going to have to put this one up to you. I need you to sleep on this. Do you think we're going to work out? I don't want to. I hate ultimatums because they're stupid, but I think that I don't have a choice. You've put me in a spot where I'm already miserable as it is, and I don't feel like I have you being there for me, which isn't good. Called me first thing next morning. It was over. And that was a year and a half. Like I thought I was gonna marry that girl. And as like we were great
Yeah.
together for a long time.
Yeah.
But
It's part of growing up, though.
yeah,
Part of it.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad that it happened that way now. But back then, I was just like, pardon my French, I said, are you kidding me? Like I was just I've already lost everything. You can't take much more from me before it's until I don't have anything. I almost lost my car again when it blew up that summer
Yeah.
in 24.
Yeah.
The radiator went out and overheated it. And I was worried that the cylinder's gonna be warped or something, but thank God it wasn't. But that happening just sent me over the edge. I was like, you know what? Morals, they don't matter because clearly God doesn't care what I have. And I thought of that, and that's when I started just doing stupid stuff all the time.
Yeah.
For the rest of summer, it was drinking, doing stuff with girls I shouldn't have been doing, and just not talking to God. I was angry at God, and I didn't talk to anyone about it.
Yeah.
I kept it all to myself. I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm done. I'm done. I gave my life. I gave my life, and I was good. And then I felt I was betrayed.
Yeah.
I had never felt so alone in my life, and I isolated myself on purpose, probably just out of just pure immature retaliation. Just, you know what? If you want me to be alone, then you can have it. That's how I thought. So all I did was I went to work and I would talk to chicks and do stupid stuff with them later that night, drink and all those things. And then I eventually, late summer 2024, I was like, okay, turn it around. Turn it around. You can't do this, right?
Hmm.
So I decided to get my stuff together for the rest of summer, right before college. And I was doing all right. I feel like I was really starting to heal. And then I went to Big E Welcome Week at EKU. And I went right back into drinking. And that's when I started to really just give up on myself. The more I missed her and the more I missed my old life, the more I hated everything about where I was. But I didn't want to get better. I really didn't. I wanted to feel good, and I just kept spiraling. My life was like a tailspin airplane for months. For really, it started all the way back May 2023 with that divorce.
Yeah.
And I kept running into the ground, just kept doing it.
Yeah.
Things out of my control. But what little I could control, I decided to just do the wrong thing with because I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was pissed. And I decided I wanted to serve at the Southland Christian Church in Richmond and be a small group leader with Cameron, my roommate, best friend, guy
Yeah.
who had been in my small group all those years. Cameron was there for me and all of that. He watched me go insane firsthand, right? When I'm insane, I lost my mind.
Right.
Like I lost it.
Yeah.
I crashed out for a long time. But I would do my best with these guys. I didn't want them to end up like me. I didn't want that. So I did everything I could. And every Wednesday night I felt like me. But then outside of there, a whole nother story. Didn't feel like me at all. I wasn't going on Sundays unless I was with my friends that weekend. But I wasn't really hanging out with the same friends as much, and the few I was badly influencing, we were just drinking and doing stupid stuff, and I was doing other things with girls in college and all that, and just I was pretty broken, and then I ended up in a situationship, and then a Halloween bender, 10 days straight of just being drunk for 10 days, and on the last night, me and this one girl became friends. We started hanging out, and then it was kind of like a situationship until Thanksgiving, and it was Thanksgiving Day, and I was with my family. And I started to feel like me. This is my first time seeing my family in a long time. I'm with my dad's side of the family. And I think I started to get a little bit of me back. Like, I think my heart softened a little bit.
Good.
And that night, I was like, man, this girl is not good for me. We're not doing anything good, right? She ain't serious with me. So I ended that before I went to bed. I had a night with all my cousins in my mama's living room. Like, that's tradition. Me and my cousins all stay at mama's house after Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we stay on Christmas Eve as well. And we have a movie night in the living room, and mama will go to bed, and we'll just all stay up and watch movies. So we stayed there and all that. And then next day is Black Friday. And Phil and Eli and well, Nathan Elliott. And yeah, that was it. They all wanted to hang out. And this is weird, but we're like, oh, we just weren't doing things we should have been doing. And I was like, guys, I don't want to drink today. I don't want to do it. Let's not do it. So I show up and there's a bottle of whiskey on the coffee table, and I'm like, what's that? My stupid butt decided to just join in as a joke. I had not even a whole shot. I decided to just jokingly take a shot. And I was like, man, I don't like this. Like I'm pissed. I wanted to have a good hangout with the guys that we didn't need it. And I don't know what it was in me. Maybe it was my heart softening the night before or what, but there was something in me that was like, I don't want to do this. Don't even know why.
You start hearing God again.
I think so. And our friend David shows up. David don't drink. He don't like it when we drink. And so David shows up and I'm like, sweet, okay. And then David's, hey, let's go pick up an ice from work. So we go pick up an ice from work because he don't have a car yet. And we drive back and I'm like, man, I just hope that something good's going on. And we get out of David's rental 2022 Dodge Charger that he had because his Kia Soul got broken into. I got to drive the Charger too. It was really cool. It was fast. And I get out of the car and I see everyone from our old friend group's car outside.
Wow.
Everyone's home for Thanksgiving break. Now, no one in our graduating class moved other than my girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, moved further than Wilmore. Everyone stayed within an hour of Lexington, or actually really within 40 minutes of Lexington. So we could have hung out on the weekends. We saw each other at UKCSF sometimes on Friday nights at Pancake Night, but we didn't have a full function in a minute, right? And so I'm just like, I see everyone's cars, and I'm just like, and so I walk down to Phil's basement at the back door,
Yeah.
and I see everyone in there, and my heart, the Grinch, his heart grew 3 times. That's what mine did.
Something about it.
Huh?
Something about being around
Yeah.
the people. That's why people are so important. You lose your way, and that's why I'm glad, me and you are talking a lot more again. You lose your way a little bit, things get dark, and you go back and you see these people, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. This is who
It was
I
my
used to
aha
be.
moment, man.
Yeah, it's who you used to be, right? This is my ascended version. This is before
This is
life,
good, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
life, before life got bad, before I let myself get bad in life.
Because up to this point, I gave up on God, I gave up on myself, and I gave up on my future. I didn't care if I woke up the next day.
Yeah.
I did not care if I was still alive. I did not. I didn't want to die. I didn't actively want to die. Maybe a couple seconds or so. Once in a while, I'll be like, no, okay, I'm good. But I would think it.
Yeah.
But then I walk into Phil's basement and life's worth living again.
Yeah.
And I think that night before with me ending that thing and then taking a stand, no, we're not going to do that tonight. And I'm like, I see everyone's cars and I'm like, none of these guys are going to be drinking too. So we walk in, everyone's there. And my heart just melts, dude. And it grows and I feel so uplifted. I'm just like, oh, it's like my first time breathing in years, right? And I'm just like, whoa, I haven't felt this way in a long time. Like even we've had functions this big and I haven't felt like this.
Yeah.
So we all went bowling that night. We got free lanes at Southland Lanes because Nathan Elliott's buddy hooked us up. And it was just so nice just be with everybody. We ran into some of our other mutuals from the First Alliance friend group, which had happened a few times actually, but It happened that night too, and it was just really cool. Dude, everyone decided they wanted to stay at Phil's house. And I'm like, I can't find a spot to sleep, and I've got somewhere to be tomorrow. So I drove all the way back to Richmond,
Uh-huh.
and I get back to my dorm at 4 a.m.
Uh-huh.
Great night. It was late night. Yeah, Cameron stayed at Phil's house. I came back to our dorm. So it was just me. And I went to sleep. I woke up at 1 p.m. the next day, and I had to be at David Haugie's house at 3 p.m. Now, David Haugie, that's my uncle. I call him Uncle Dave for Uncle David, but he's more like a father figure to me. He's a mentor of mine from Southland.
Yeah.
We went on a mission trip together a few years ago. I'm well acquainted with his whole like family and all that stuff. But David, I met him at a mission trip, and he basically took me, Nathan, and Cameron under his wing when we were juniors or so, and he stuck with us our whole senior year as a mentor, and he was our men's retreat leader. Now, there's another little gap. Men's retreat happened that fall as well, before Thanksgiving, and that week I started to picture what being a man looks like again, and being like, okay, I could be better than this.
Yeah.
There is something out there. I didn't fully grasp it, but I knew there was something out there, and it took me a little bit longer, and now I've been able to apply a lot of stuff from that week, and he was our leader there, so that was pretty cool. But David's having this friendsgiving thing with his whole family, Nathan's girlfriend's family, because Nathan's girlfriend is best friends with his daughter, and then also some guys from our men's retreat group that are friends of David personally. They bring their family, so it's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
And I have to be at this. I love David. I wake up and I'm like, man, my head hurts.
Yeah.
I had a headache and I wasn't even drinking. And
Perfect.
it's funny. And so I open the cabinet, and I get some ibuprofen, and dude, that pill got lodged in my airway. Now,
I
see,
remember this.
I was born with a really crappy esophagus, dude. My mom's side of the family, they all have tight throats. It's not good. You can't eat fast. You can't take pills. You just can't, or else you can just die. I've always managed to spit them back up if they don't make it. So I'm like, what's the harm? We found out pretty quick that it doesn't always come back up. It got stuck there, and I couldn't drink water. It would just shoot back out. I couldn't eat food to shoot back out.
Uh-huh.
Pill would stay there, wouldn't shoot out with it. And I kept developing saliva trying to wash it down, but it wouldn't go there, and it would just choke me.
Yeah.
So then I'd have to spit out the saliva. No, pill wouldn't come out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude. So I tried self Heimlich. I tried turning myself upside down. All these things trying to just get it to just shake out. No, it's lodged. It's in there. I can breathe, but I can't do anything else. And I won't breathe for long before I have to spit. So I drove over to Nathan's house like that. And I would just have to stop the car. I guess at every red light, I open my door and spit. And that's just how it was. Get to Nathan's house and I tell him what's going on. He's like, okay, we'll see what David can do. So then me and Nathan carpool over to Versailles to David's house. We get there and I tell him what's going on. And he's just like, all right. And they try beating it out of me. They try Heimlich, everything. And David, he was a Marine. He's tough. He's a big dude.
He's hard to, yeah.
Boom!
I was raised by a Marine.
Yeah.
Right? I completely understand what you're saying.
Yes. And so David, he's beating it out of me. It ain't working. And Courtney, he tried to just Heimlich me. And then they tried both at the same time, which is complicated, but they tried it. Nothing was working. But my back was starting to hurt. And I was like, all right, man. So I couldn't eat Thanksgiving dinner. And I'm like, oh, everyone's in the dining room and everyone feels terrible for me. They feel so bad for me. And I'm just sitting on the couch in their living room with a heating pad on my throat, hoping that'll work. Everyone else is in the dining room eating. I told them, hey, go have fun. I'll be all right. I'll figure this out. It has to go somewhere. It can't just stay there forever. Pills dissolve, even though it was dry as a bone probably in there. I sat there and I'm just thinking about my life for the first time in years, 2 years. I'm just sitting there like this. And I'm looking up the ceiling and I'm starting to just think of, dang, I used to be so happy. I used to be so happy. I used to be so freaking happy about my life and excited. And I was like, man, I used to have the biggest smile in the room.
You did.
And I was that guy. I was the guy that made sure that everyone was okay. And I was always there for everybody.
Yeah.
And I had what it took to do that. I had the capacity to hold in a lot of info from people. And I was in a good spot. And I'm like, man, it's been a long time since I've been that way. But now I was like, man, like last night, that was cool. I could have died today. That's what I'm thinking. I'm just like, I could have died today. And I'm like, man, I wasn't ready to go. I thought I was. I thought it didn't matter. And I was like, man, it's got to get better than this, right? And I think something just turned to me where I was like, life is worth living. I need to get my head out of my butt and start remembering that, what's really important and
Yeah,
go for it. I was like, man, like, just because those days are over doesn't mean that good things can't happen to me again. That doesn't mean that I can't do good things again. It doesn't mean can't change.
I agree.
And I had let so much crap weigh on me and bring me doubt
Yeah.
and struggle and pain. And I finally understood, dude, like just because things look the way how they did for other people in your life and it hurt you doesn't mean that's forever.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, dude, I need to get it together. It's time.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to die today. I care enough to make it to the hospital. And I want to wake up tomorrow and go to church. I want to do it.
That's when I call you.
Huh?
Because remember when you go to the hospital
So,
to
yeah,
get that pill out, here I call you and I'm like, I haven't seen Eli Whirling in
it
a
had been a
while.
long
It
time.
had been. I do wish I was better at keeping in touch with you. There are definitely times where I'm like, okay, maybe I remember hearing about your story back when we met up last month at First Watch, and I was like, man, I could. I'm a responsibility kind of guy. Man, would it have been better if I had reached out to him? Or who knows, maybe he wouldn't have responded. Maybe he would, but at least I would have done something to keep in touch with the good dude that he is. Here I come, finally do call you.
And it's
Nathan,
reached the tipping point.
yeah, and I'm there at the end. I'm there when it's important.
You got the good part.
Yeah. Nathan picks up the phone. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
because Nathan took me. Cameron and Nathan took me.
yeah. And I said, Nathan, where's Eli? And he goes, oh, Eli, you had was it surgery that you got?
Yeah, they reached in there and grabbed his emergency
Yeah.
surgery.
So he was like, yeah, Eli's in surgery right now. I said, he's in what? I was, what? What's going on? And yeah, he explained this whole situation to me. And I'm like, my goodness. I hope he's
You
gonna
almost
be.
missed me.
Yeah, I was like,
You almost had to wait until heaven to
yeah.
talk to me again.
No, I legit it just would have been so weird because if things had gone the other way and I waited a day later, it could have been like, hey, like Nathan could have picked up the phone and been like, hey, he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
That hit me after I talked with Nathan. I was like, oh my gosh, I could have one of the best dudes I've ever known. If it had gone the other way and I had called a day later, I would have just barely missed you. But now we're here. God is good and he has control.
God is good. Yeah, because I've been dead.
Yeah, but you started hearing him again. Your heart softened. The Holy Spirit started speaking to you. God was looking out for you.
Yeah.
God was looking out for you. And now, I believe you're doing a little bit better.
So yeah, hey, the next morning, I was in a haze for the rest of the night after I woke up. I got a text from everybody pretty much on the earth because they saw my Instagram story. It was a picture of me in a hospital gown going,
Yeah, it was like,
mind you guys, I could have died after that picture
Yeah.
if something had really gone wrong in surgery. But anyway, the next morning, we all ride to church together, like the good old days, really.
Yep.
We're at this Nicholasville campus, and John Weiss is preaching, and he's preaching about how God makes us new. He redeems us whenever we're broken. And I was like,
God he's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not funny how he just speaks to you.
and I was just like, no, now Weiss has just got my number, dude. It's crazy. Like,
He's cool. I've never met him. I don't think I've ever met him, but
I
I've
haven't
heard
met him
really
either.
good things about him.
oh yeah. So dude, this past Sunday, he had a sermon. He's preaching about like the exact story of Elijah. Funny, I share a name with him. And I just felt so called out
Yeah.
by the whole thing. I was like, that's where I was. And it was just another reminder of just keep going. Just
Yeah.
keep going. And so that I'm doing a lot better now though. That day I decided, all right, we're gonna get back into our gym routine. We're gonna go to church, we're gonna read the Bible, we're gonna be praying every day. We're gonna get this together. I started going back to UK's campus ministry because I went to EKU, but I didn't really like it there.
Yeah.
But UK CSF was cool. And then I started going to UK Young Life by spring break. I've met some really cool people there, and ever since then, man, I've had some dips. I made some mistakes, especially around New Year's. I did some stupid stuff around New Year's. A little bit of that fall semester Eli kind of came back, but then I quickly killed him off after it's probably about 5 or 6 days of that.
Yeah.
And then since then, dips in the road, but overall we're going up, and
Yeah.
it's been a lot better, and I've gotten a lot closer to my guys in my small group that I teach now. Young men they're boys, but one day they're gonna be men, and
Yeah.
want to be part of what grows them into being better men than I had been by then. And know what to look for. I know a lot of things to look for. And like you said, you're the most qualified to help people that used to be. And it's crazy the way how God works in your life. And now, the second I worried about where I was going to live after dropping out of school, I was like, man, what am I going to do? And then boom, me and my stepmom find a house that I can buy and share the mortgage with her, but pay it off myself and stuff after a few months of settling in. God blessed me with a stepmom that wants to provide for me, and she had no obligation to, but she decided to,
Yeah.
and that's cool. And my mom and my sister, they have an apartment together now. They've been in this duplex for since around February. My mom came back around and apologized to my grandpa, and they talked it out, and things got better for them. And that was around the same time as me coming back around and stuff too.
Good.
And yeah, like just life's just God's taking a lot of it back, or giving a lot of it back, and in better ways. Like how we said last night for Colin.
Yeah.
God gives back those things and better. Like my house, it feels a lot like my old basement, my mom's old place back in the day. But me, it's more me,
Yeah.
a fully realized version of that. And
Yeah.
mom and my sister, they have a home together. They're roommates. That's cool. And everything's just
Coming.
it's coming back
Yeah.
and in better ways and moving forward into just something better than anything I ever even had.
It's awesome. So now one last question as we got to wrap up here.
Yeah,
So you're not, it's hard to say we're on the other side
right.
because the mission never ends. Life doesn't end until it does. But right now, there's always going to be more. This is just a part of the journey and hopefully a long journey. Hopefully, we're only like at minimum a quarter of our way done through our journey right now. But now that you're getting on the other side of this, a lot of transformation, a lot of formation, figuring out what it means to be to be a man, to be an adult, and do these things and get through the depths of life that you've been in. You've been in some really bad spots the last couple of years. So if you had an opportunity to look 17, 18-year-old Eli in the face, just like I'm doing with you right now, and say and just tell him what he needs to hear. Now, I don't mean, hey, you should do this and this.
Yeah, don't do
Yeah,
that.
don't be
Right.
like this. Hey, don't go out and drink, which maybe you shouldn't have. But also not in a comforting, it's okay, honey. But if you had the opportunity to look at him dead in the eyes and tell him what he needed to hear back then, that what you would have loved to have heard, what would you say? Short and brief.
Something I wish I could have been
Yeah.
told. Something I'd tell him.
Don't be too hard on him because you love him
Yeah.
and you want the best for him.
Yeah, what would I tell him?
It's a hard thing
That's a hard thing.
because
What would I tell him?
I had to work through this myself. But let me tell you, dude, it's so helpful.
I think I'd say don't try to be in so much control all the time. Don't try to keep it all under your own understanding.
Yeah.
And I'd tell him to pray more.
Yeah.
I'd tell him to pray a lot more because I was looking for God in things, but I wasn't praying. And I think that was the thing that hurt a lot
Yeah. No, those are
because I didn't see him.
yeah.
Just because I wasn't looking the right way.
Yeah.
And I think I'd tell him that, and I'd just be like, dude, don't give up on yourself.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself be a victim
Yeah.
because that's going to crush you. That's what I tell
Yeah. So that's a lot of good stuff, right? Advice, what to do. Is there anything that you can say that connect to him personally of how he might be feeling? Less of more of the advice
them.
guide. This is the processes that you should be doing, but like hey man, just almost like a comfort,
Mm.
connecting to him emotionally, something that he wanted to hear that would have made him love himself a little bit more. That kid, that broken kid that was getting into this stuff,
Mm.
that got into this stuff and was feeling however about himself, what would you say to make him not believe that he was these things?
The kid inside you that you always have been is still alive. Take care of him. Make
Yeah,
him proud. He's counting on you
yeah,
because that kid inside, that's who's talking right now.
yeah,
He wasn't doing much back then. He was crying for help.
yeah,
Like me, I was crying for help in there,
yeah.
in that shell of whatever I was. It's weird. I was doing an ab workout at Planet Fitness sometime around Thanksgiving break or winter break or something, and it was a feeling like this where I hit it so hard. I started to remember hitting it for the first time back in high school, or what it was like when I was on the track team.
Yeah.
And when I opened my eyes, I felt like 16-year-old me, 15-year-old me. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
like
Uh-huh.
I was like, I
Yeah.
haven't used my brain in 5 years. You know what I mean? That's how I felt.
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't used my brain in 4 years, 5 years. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think it was like one of those feelings where I was just like, where have I been? What have I been doing? Why did I do that?
Yeah.
And I think it's moments like that where I was like, dude, like you let your subconscious just run yourself on the ground because your subconscious is a lot more upset than you are.
Yeah.
He's not, he doesn't have it as much in check. You've let your going through the motions do the talking instead of actually taking action and just actually processing what's going on.
Yeah.
I didn't process things. I was just like, do, whatever's good. And I tell him, remember the kid inside of you? That guy ought to be taking the steering wheel and not whatever this is.
Yeah. You're gonna be all right, and you are loved, and you're worthy.
Hmm.
And dude, you're a good kid.
Yeah, that's
You
what I
are.
tell him.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Man. I appreciate it, Eli.
Absolutely, dude. I'm
I've
glad we could
enjoyed
do
it.
this a little.
Yeah, I've loved it, man. I know it wasn't according to plan. Life does whatever, but man, I'm glad that we had it.
Yeah.
I think that life throwing wrenches in the plan is just God intervening.
I think so. Yeah, I was about to say, not selling one of those guys, but I think God did this for a reason.
That's a perspective thing, man. I just have a godly faith perspective, and when you have that, you see God working, and I think God worked, and this is a very intelligent conversation. I'm excited for this to release.
It's probably one of the most intelligent conversations you and I will ever have. I can
Maybe.
really focus.
We locked in. We locked
We locked in.
So.
I'm surprised we weren't that funny. Yeah.
I know. Honestly, I thought we were going to have a little bit more goofy, but I'm glad that we did. I'm glad that we had the conversation that we did.
Yeah.
It
Hey,
was a really good, enlightening conversation.
I'll be back on sometime.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen. See where life takes us and
Yeah.
what more we can share. But for now, this has been the Living for His Glory podcast with Eli Cox.
God bless the Barretts.
Absolutely. That's the plan. God bless the Coxes. And I'll see you guys next time. I'm super excited to get to know you guys and love you guys. I would love to hear you guys in the comments, or you can slide into my DMs at Living for His Glory podcast. We'd love to get to know you and your story as we continue to help you and we can figure out together what it means to live for God's glory. I love you guys. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great week.